Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Self-Made Podcast. I'm your host, Trca. And first off, thank you so much for listening, watching, messaging me. I started posting like TikTok content of the podcast, and it's been really cool to also reach you guys through that. So I always post like sneak peeks of the episodes. But anyway, jumping to this week's episode, this might be the most excited I've been to talk about a topic because it's so prevalent in my life. It's so real, and it's really what I'm experiencing, learning, gaining right now. And that's kind of what this podcast is. Every week I kind of reflect and I think about what have I learned this week, what has God spoken to me about, like what is kind of stirring in my mind, you know, what lessons am I learning and what am I gaining. And I feel like I could talk about a million things this week, but the underlying message to it all is essentially about change. And essentially, I want to talk to you and tell you guys why you're not making changes, why changes aren't being made in your life. And a lot of this stems from the book that I'm reading. If you follow me on Instagram or on TikTok, you've probably seen me post so much of this book. It's an orange book, and it's called The Power to Change. And it's written by Craig Groeschel. Okay, I know I'm like completely butchering his last name. I'm terrible with like names, but Craig, he's a pastor. I had no idea, and it was honestly really crazy. I feel like everything happens for a reason, and God kind of does magical little things throughout your life. But I was at a Target shopping for Christmas presents back in Iowa, kind of a last minute gift thing, and I was looking into the book section because I'm like, you know what, I think getting books for people can be a great gift because it's a way for you to kind of help them. And I don't know, this book just jumped out to me and I bought it, and I don't really know why I bought it because I didn't buy it for anyone other than I guess myself. I bought it and I was like, well, I guess I'll read it because I do love reading. I love like self-help books. And I didn't even read the inside. I didn't even read anything about it. I just saw the cover and it said The Power to Change, and I was like, sold, bingo. So anyway, fast forward to coming back to Iowa, January 1st, Jake and I and my brother started the 75 Hard, and part of that challenge is to read 10 pages a day. And I was like, well, I guess I'll read that book because I had no other book here. And wow, like when I say wow, this book has changed my life already. I'm on day 10 of the challenge. It's January 10th, and I read 10 pages a day. And it's funny because I have to stop myself from reading this book because I want to be able to absorb each section. Like I just read my 10 pages because I feel like if you like read too much, I'm not going to be able to like obtain and absorb and learn kind of that message. It's pretty much just section by section, and every section has kind of a different theme. And so I'm only like 120 pages into the book maybe, but I have learned so much, and I just want to share it with you guys because it's changed my life already. And so anyway, I feel like too with like the new year, I feel like this is a great topic just because it's a time where a lot of you are making changes. I'm making so many changes in my life. It's the time for change. It's the time for new habits, creating new habits, killing old habits, and I've just learned so much about the power of habits and the power of change. Like the book literally is called The Power to Change. And I don't know, I guess I've just seen it myself and in a lot of other people's. We typically, you know, you start making a change and it lasts for a few weeks and then something happens. Typically for me, it's like I'm traveling or like a friend comes to town or something interrupts my routine, and it interrupts my consistency with like the change that I'm trying to make, and then I slack off and it's not consistent and it's not like an everlasting change. So I've always ran into this, and I know this is so normal. Like it happens to so many people. It's so common. And I really never understood like why I couldn't just, you know, continue on. And some things I do, and I've made many positive changes in my life, but I think actually understanding how to make a change makes making changes so much easier, you know. And I don't know, I guess I just am really good at creating these habits, and they only last for a few weeks, and it's so frustrating because I don't want to be the person who just goes in like spurts and phases of doing this and that. I want to like make a change, commit to it, and actually make that a part of my life. And I've done that. I don't want to like discredit myself. Like I've definitely done that in many forms of my life, like going to church. I started going to church, and then it slowly, one like small habit, one change impacts a million other things. And anyway, like that, and then going to the gym and stuff, like made that change for myself, and now it's consistent. Like I know I'm capable of doing it, and I think that's the first thing you need to be aware of is the fact that your mind is so powerful, and you have to believe that you can make the change and that you're capable of making the change, and everybody is, because I think we limit ourselves a lot and we think we're not capable, we can't make that change, yada yada yada, you know, like this and that. Like we come up with excuses, and it's kind of bogus, and I think it's important to learn the power of your mind and your thoughts as well. I feel like we often get discouraged because of that. I feel like when we're not seeing results, it's like, why am I even trying? And then it makes you not want to try other things, you know, and try in other areas of your life. So I guess the first thing is to just kind of address the issue. And I feel like the biggest issue with that is we assume we're working harder than everyone. We forget how hard everyone else is working too, and I think we assume it's easier for everyone else. That's what I'm trying to say. Oftentimes in life, we assume everyone's reaching these goals, and it's so simple for them, it's so easy, and they're not going through like the grit and the hard times and the rough patches and the dull valleys, you know, it's all peaks and all butterflies and all rainbows, but that's not reality. Like, every successful person you see, like, they're doing a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't know, and a lot of it's formed in their habits and their routines, and like, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. Like I said, like, they are putting in the work. And I think, just newsflash, like, a lot of people are on their grind to get to where they want to be. And I think seeing goals and stuff, we get discouraged because it's like, well, they just have it so much easier. No, like, you can't have that mindset. That's such a limiting mindset. That's such a poor me, pity me mindset. You have to have the mindset of being like, they got here, so how can I get there? Like, take literally your role model. Like, if you have a goal to run, I'm just going to use running as an example because I always do on this podcast, but one of my friends, she runs a sub 3-hour marathon, and this isn't really an actual goal of mine, but I'm going to use it for reference. But it's like, I could use the excuse of she's just an athlete, she's born with the genetics, her families are full of runners, like, she's got longer legs than me. No, like, I could do it if I set my mind to it. I'm just going to have to train for it. I'm going to have to literally do what she does, but maybe I'm going to have to work a little harder. I'm going to have to train a little longer. I'm going to have to train more. Like, it might take more for me to do it, but I'm still just as capable. And instead of looking at me and her and comparing myself and being like, you know what, I'm not built for it. You have to shift your mind and shift your perspective to those type of things and view those people as like, okay, she wakes up every single day and she is doing her speed workouts, she's doing her tempo workouts, her easy runs, she's running this many miles. She started here, now she's here, it took her this long. Like, study their habits, literally study their habits and their routines, and use that to your advantage. Like, don't use it to discourage yourself and poor me, pity me. Like, it is like literally the pathway to success is like watching their habits and their routines, so utilize that information. And the thing is too, like, it's a lot of things in life, I guess, it's cutthroat, you know? Like, we think it's going to be easy and simple and not competitive. Like, there's going to be so many like failures we go through, and I like to talk about this in my podcast a lot, but it's like, there's a big difference between failing and failure, and you have to understand failing is good. Failing means you're putting in the effort, you're trying to be better. Failure is you're giving up and you're just like throwing in the towel and you're moving on. I never expect something as a failure. I fail. I willingly fail. I want to fail, but I don't wrap it up and end it. You know, like, it's not a failure. I just learn from it and I pivot and I make changes. And I guess it's just really important when you're in this like mindset, I guess, of comparison in a sense, to make changes where you just assume like they have it better, or they were born into that family, or they have better genetics, or they have a bigger network, or it's so easy to just make excuses, like I've been saying. And my advice to you guys is to like put steps into actions, okay? Like, we need to create steps to get to where you want to go, and then go full force into those. And I guess my tips with that, it's just, you have to be willing to like seek out help. You have to be willing to ask for help and network and make connections and find those mentors and message them and ask them, get them tips. Like, I think that's the beautiful thing of like influencers and influencing is each influencer, I guess, has their own like niche and their own specific, you know, community of whatever it is. Like, some people are business, some people are in sales, some people are in fitness and health like me, wellness, some people are specified in like PCOS. It's like, they're literally a way to network to them and like gain all of their insight. You know, like, we share our entire life online, our journeys online, and I, at least myself, try to share every like lesson. That's kind of why I have this podcast, and it's like, I want you guys to take what I've already went through and learned and put that towards your life. And I think you can do that in every aspect, like business mentorships, but then even like going to church and listening to my pastor talk, like he talks about life and families and all of this, and like he has so much life he's lived and so many lessons and so many conversations he's had, and he can communicate that all into like an hour sermon and teach me so much. It's like, take advantage of opportunities of learning from other people, but you can't learn from other people unless you're willing to ask and try and like research and try to educate yourself through that. So put in the time. And you have to set goals. You have to set bigger goals than you can even imagine. My little brother always says this. He's like, I shoot 10 times bigger than what's probably realistic. Like, I think oftentimes we set goals and it's like, okay, my goal is to make $500 this month. It's like, no, say $5,000 this month, because they always say, like, if you fall short, at least you're falling probably above where you would have naturally set your goal to. And I just think it's so freaking important to like find mentors in your life and surround yourself by people who are gonna lead you and bring value to you and benefit you in the areas that you're trying to make a change. So if you're trying to go to church more, start hanging out with people who go to church, you know, start listening to worship music, start listening to podcasts talking about church or God. Or if you're trying to quit drinking alcohol, quit going to the bars, quit hanging out with people who drink alcohol. Like, you can't put yourself in that environment and expect to change. You can, mind over matter, go to a bar and not drink, but like, you're gonna learn so much more by becoming friends with people who are also sober and learning their journeys and what they've found helps them and benefits them. And it's like, to make change, if you can network and meet people and learn from them, it makes it so much easier. And I think a lot of times when people are trying to make changes, they think they have to go through it alone and that they're the only one trying to go through this. It's like, I don't know if I've ever had like a unique thought and a unique experience. Like, everything I've experienced, some of my closest friends are going through the same things, and it takes us months to years to realize like we're both battling that same thing. We just didn't talk about it. So I think being vulnerable and open to with like your closest friends or people you think also may be going through that, like, have those conversations, be willing to learn, be willing to open up, and ask for help. Like, if you're trying to make change, it's okay to have people guide you and help you. Like, I think people have this bad like stigma towards like asking for help because it makes you look weak, but I think asking for help makes you look strong and like it's like courageous, you know, like you're willing to kind of admit that you're maybe not able to handle something on your own completely. And I don't think anyone really is. Like, the power of community and people and like having a support system is going to propel you so far. It's so important. So I guess that's my first section of like talking about just making change, and that's not even something I learned in the book. All of that was really just what I've learned throughout my own experience, and recently it's just I've had to learn how to like ask for help more. I'm the queen of wanting to do it on my own, and I'll figure it out on my own, or I just assume people won't understand, or they haven't experienced what I'm experiencing, but like they have, and I've learned so much from just opening up and asking questions. One of my favorite things that I've learned in this book, and it was like one of the very first chapters, and it stood out to me, and it just made so much sense because I've never heard somebody talk about this before. But it's in the book, he talks about how it's about the who before the do, and it starts with you have to learn how to change your identity. So I think a lot of times, for example, we cling to things. Well, actually, let me back up. First, I want to talk about how I feel like when we're trying to make a change, we jump to the do. We jump to, this is just like an easy example of like an alcoholic and quitting drinking. A lot of times people who are alcoholics just admit like, okay, I'm just going to stop drinking. That's like their first step to like going sober. I'm done drinking. But the thing is, you have to you have to dissect, the who. And you have to identify yourself as, I am sober. It's like, I'm not quitting drinking, I don't drink. Like, I am sober. You have to claim, it's like claiming the energy and like claiming that mindset and that persona and that identity. It's like, you're not quitting something, you're not quitting drinking, it's, I don't drink. Like, claim it as it already is done, you know? And that is so powerful. Like, oh, I'm starting to run, I'm gonna pick up running. It's, I am a runner. I am a distance runner. I am a businesswoman. Like, claim that and literally identify as that, because you are. Like, once you start, you are that. And I think the term, kind of like the verb of like, I'm quitting, it's like you're not fully claiming it. You're not fully into it. You're kind of giving yourself that wiggle room to be like, well, maybe I can revert back to my old habit. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm not actually that. You have to believe you are that and actually become that, and then make the actions and steps towards that, and then you stop drinking, and then you start running. So it's like you have to get into the mindset and believe that you are that and you are capable of doing that, and then it makes the steps so much easier. It makes the actions so much easier, and then the actions are so much more real because it feels real, feels authentic. It feels like you're you. It doesn't feel like a persona or a false identity of like something you're not, because you quite literally are that. And it's just so much like mind over matter. You know, it's so important to believe certain things about yourself, and we often, it's funny because I feel like we focus on and we identify with like our worst traits, you know, like it's I think in the book he talks about this actually, and he was like, we often are like, I'm fat, or I'm poor, or I'm weak, and it's like, you are so much more than like your worst traits. And I feel like we fixate on those things, you know, it's like that's, you see a person and they can bring so much to the table, but when they come to the table, most of the time we're only focusing on our insecurities, and we're scared people are going to notice those things about us. And it's just so bizarre. When he brought that up, I was like, there's so many good things about me, but like my biggest insecurities are like what I feel like that's what I am, and that's what I reflect, and that's what I give off. But it's like most people don't pay attention to those. Most people don't even know those are insecurities of yours. So like let go of that identification and start identifying with things that you are proud of and you are confident in, and that are positive things. It's going to help your confidence as well, just in life in general. But anyway, you cannot do what you don't define, and that's another thing he stated in the book. And it says, like, so it's a goal, if it's a change that you want to make, like, you're not going to be able to do it unless you define what that goal is. So it's like, if you feel like something needs to change in like your lifestyle or going to the gym, but it's like, I need to start going to the gym, define what you want out of the gym. Don't just say, I'm gonna start going to the gym, I'm gonna start working out. Like, make it a goal to be like, I'm gonna start running every single day until I can run a mile. Like, my goal is to be able to run a mile effortlessly, you know? And that gives you a purpose to going to the gym. That gives you a goal. That gives you something to work towards and to train for. And a big thing he talks about, I'm sure, I think it's in my notes later on, but it's like, it's not about the effort you put in, it's about the training that you do. You have to train yourself to create these habits. You have to train yourself to learn how to become these things that you want to become. It's not just you're trying super hard. He had this example about running a marathon, and it's like two people are starting at the start line of a marathon. One person hasn't trained at all, shows up and is like, I'm gonna give my best effort, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna try as hard as I can. Meanwhile, the person standing next to you is gonna go out there who's been training for 16 weeks, has all of that training built up to, he's probably gonna have to put in half the effort, but has all that training built up to the point where it's gonna be seamless for him, easy for him to go run 26 miles because he's put in the work to get there. He's taken the steps. Meanwhile, the other guy's, I'm just gonna put in all my effort. So like, that just goes to show, like, it takes time, change takes time. You have to be willing to train yourself. And with training comes failure. You know, you're gonna fail, you're gonna fall, you're gonna miss a day. But it's all about getting back up and continuing on. But back to what I was saying is, like, you can't do what you don't define. So you have to define specific goals. And I think it's so important to write them down. It's not even just in your mind being like, yeah, I'm gonna run a mile. Write that down, tell people. That's why I love, part of my job on like social media is I can like tell you guys my goals, like my whole episode of my goals. I'm claiming that, I'm telling you that, and it holds you accountable. Like, it makes it more real, it makes it more serious, because I don't want to let down. I don't want to look like I'm not a woman of my word. Like, I want to do what I say I'm going to do, and it makes it so much more real. So having goals is so important, and just having that intention behind those goals is huge. And I don't know, I just think having purpose comes with having an intention, and having an intention comes from having goals. So you need to start setting goals. Like, don't just make it this broad change that you want to make it so specific, and then let it build from there, you know? Like, it's like, you're not limiting yourself by being like, the only reason I'm going to the gym is to run a mile. But like that, once you do that and you run a mile, you're going to be so confident in the fact that you held yourself accountable to that, and you did it, and you trained for it, and you see the work and the progress, that from there you can set another goal and be like, okay, I'm gonna start bench pressing until I can bench a plate. And then that gives you intention to go in there and train for that. So you start doing exercises to supplement like chest strength and shoulder strength and all of that. And it's a progressive thing. And I think we try to take on too many changes at once, and that's also not appropriate. That's not beneficial. Like, one thing at a time is really important, so you can put your all into something and your focus on that, like, one specific goal. But again, we don't want to just focus on how to win. You have to focus on how to achieve. And how to achieve is how to begin. So it's like, I feel like most of the time it's always like, I want to bench a plate, but it's like, okay, well, first off, like, or no, back up. That was actually not what I meant to say. Oftentimes our goal is like, I want a bigger upper body. I want to look bigger. Well, that's easy to say. That's such a broad spectrum. Like, what do you mean? Like, if someone says, I want a bigger upper body, well, yeah, a lot of people want bigger upper bodies or bigger legs or bigger butt. But it's like, what do you have to achieve to get to that? Well, I need to start hitting upper body 3 times a week. I need to start hitting glutes 2 or 3 times a week. I need to start eating more food to build muscle. Okay, so that's the steps you need to take to achieve that goal. And then backtracking even more, it's like, where do I begin? Well, now you need to sit and reflect and be like, well, shoot, like right now I'm under eating, I'm training upper body once a week, and I'm kind of half-assing it. Like, I'm not really going in with the intention of like targeting the specific muscles I want to grow. So where to begin is to see where you are now, and then like create a plan, create a training plan, create an action plan to work towards those specific goals to get to your ultimate win, which would be like the bigger upper body, if that makes sense. I hope you guys are following. I'm giving a lot of examples just because these are very like broad terms, but I want them to like be digestible and understandable to you guys. And then the last thing that was kind of like mentioned in the book and stuff too, that really stuck with me. This is huge because this is actually something I've talked about a lot on here before, but it's stop doing what you've always done. And I've been saying that forever. I heard that somewhere a couple months ago and it stuck with me, and it's like, cut the normalness out of your routine because obviously it wasn't working, it wasn't helping. Like, whatever you're doing now, if you're not in a position, if you are not feeling like the greatest version of yourself, well, what could we be doing better? Because clearly what you're doing isn't working. You need to be honest with yourself, you need to be real, and you need to take the time to reflect on your life and your routines and your habits. And you need to figure out what you need to remove and what you need to add to your life to get those changes made. And oftentimes it can be even people in your life. It's not even like things you're specifically doing, it's the influence on your life. And they can be slowing you down. They can be a lot of times, like, and this is so sad and it's really hard, and it's just part, I think, of maturing and growing up that I've realized in my like young adulthood is most people aren't going to be cheering for you, especially if you're trying to make healthy, positive changes. If they aren't also, it builds this kind of jealousy and this envy because a lot of people aren't willing to change their habits and their routines, and they're going to be jealous when they see you making those changes. And it's hard because even if they aren't intentionally doing it, I think oftentimes they do kind of drag you down and they kind of pull you away from it in a negative, like, I don't know, it's not always with like ill intent. I don't want it to seem like that, but I feel like they drag you down. And it's if somebody, say you want to start going to the gym and you want to get super fit, and you and your friend are just very unfit people, okay, but they're not going to commit to going to the gym, but you are, they're not going to be sitting here on a Friday night when you should be going to the gym and they're sitting at home. They're not going to be like, no, go to the gym and you go do that, I'll sit here alone. It's going to be like, bro, just skip the gym, just come hang out with me, like, it's fine, it's one night, it's a Friday night, like, I'm bored. So like, have people in your life who have the same goals as you, or have a goal in general, so they understand it. And I think that's so huge, is you need to have those people in your life to push you in those directions, and not pull you away, because it's so easy to like slow you down or throw kind of little barricades into it, you know, and make it more difficult and deviate you from your path. And I feel like oftentimes when people are going through like big transformations and big changes, they feel very lonely because they realize a lot of the people in their life are dragging them down, are slowing them down, aren't building them up and pushing them. But along the way, you do begin to meet those people, and I promise you, you will. Like, it's not lonely forever. My brother and I both, I feel like, have went through big life transformations with our lifestyles and stuff, and we both kind of went through that lonely period, but then you kind of begin to come out of it, and you start attracting those people in your life who are right and who are benefiting you and have that similar mindset, and it's the best feeling ever, and it's so healthy, and it makes your life a million times better, because I don't think it's good to be alone. Like, you need community, but it's better to be alone than have the wrong community, in my opinion. But anyway, you gotta cut those people out, and I guess really focus on like the things that you need to be doing. And reflecting. I always say it's just so important to reflect and be self-aware, because I think it's so easy to not. It's so easy to be focused on anything else other than ourselves. It's scary to get to know yourself. It really is. And you gotta stop doing the things you've always done, okay? And it's the hardest thing, making changes. It's like you have to break old habits and create new ones. That, I feel like it's so simple. It can be so simple, but it can be so hard too. And that's why this book's amazing, is because it's literally step by step walking me kind of through how to do that. And now I guess I kind of want to just give a little like story and testimony of how I've realized that this is so real, and it's so active, like, and even people who you probably look up to's life, we're all going through it. Like, I know a lot of people look up to me for like health and fitness, and I thought I had a pretty good grasp on everything. I really did. Like, I feel like I had a healthy relationship with food and exercise and training, and I feel like I was up here. Like, a lot of this has stemmed from me like praying a lot more and being a lot more kind of giving my stress and anxiety over to God, and it's just made me have a lot of like epiphanies. I feel like he's speaking to me a lot, and a lot recently. One thing that was hard for me is I'm always like seeking out, like, wanting a boy, you know, like I always want a boyfriend, or I'm like so lonely, and all my friends are in relationships and stuff, and I thought, like, I'm ready, God, like, why am I not being delivered this, you know, like, why is there no man in my life? Every man that I've been meeting, it's just kind of went terrible, honestly, and it's like taught me lessons, which is beautiful and amazing, but I'm like I was getting discouraged, because I'm like, I'm ready, I am ready, I have my life figured out. No, this is gonna get deep, you guys. Like, this is me being very vulnerable right here, but I've had this like a realization that I was putting a lot of my confidence and self-worth into, I was seeking out male validation for that. And since I started 75 Hard, and since I've been making changes in my life, I've realized that I had a lot less control over my life than I thought, and I was seeking out validation through other things to make me feel better, rather than just attacking the problem that was causing a lot of insecurity in my life. And one of the big things for me was my eating habits, and it really, really was. And I didn't think I had an unhealthy relationship with food. I didn't think I struggled with it, and I just don't know. I wouldn't classify it as like disordered eating, but it definitely wasn't the best way I could do it. Like, it could have been, and it has improved, but like it could be improved. And I knew one of my bad habits was snacking, but like that's not a disorder. That's not wrong, like, to snack. But the thing is, it was the way I was going about snacking. I was mindlessly eating all the time, and I kind of felt like I had no control over it. Like, I would literally finish a meal. Like, I would eat dinner, and I would have this like urge that like I wasn't satisfied. I needed more snacks. I needed something. Like, I didn't like to eat all my food and it'd be gone, and I felt like, in a sense, like deprived. I'm like, all my food on the plate's gone. Like, I want more. Like, I didn't like to feel like restricted and cut off from my meal. Like, I wanted to eat until I wanted to stop. Well, newsflash, guys, like, our bodies really never want to stop eating. You have to be like, you know, like, and so it was always a battle of being like, Chloe, just be satisfied. But then I'd always like pick on a few snacks after, you know, like eat some goldfish, or eat some Annie's bunnies, or a few bites of this or that, you know, or pick out some of like the leftovers on the stove. And I had to learn to train my brain to be like, that's not a healthy eating habit. And what made me realize this was I started reflecting on a lot of people I look up to in the fitness world, and I'm like studying their eating habits, because I eat intuitively still. I don't track anything, but I do weigh some stuff out for servings. And I was like, what's the difference between them and me? I'm like, I work my butt off in training, but like I was just kind of getting discouraged, because I've never felt like essentially my physique was where I could be. Like, I knew I could be better. I was always like, if I got shredded, like, I would be so jacked. And I always said that, but I'm like, why can't I ever do that? And it's because I can never just like portion out my food and just be done. Like, I always kind of pick and stuff, and it was a bad habit. Anyway, I realized that everyone I kind of look up to, like, they eat their meals. It's breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, boom, 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 boom. And they really don't snack a lot. And if they do, it's like a very portioned, controlled snack. And I'm like, a lot of people I look up to don't just grab a box of Cheerios and just eat them out of the box during the day. Like, that's not a common habit. That's not a healthy eating habit. And I was like, okay, so I need to quit doing that. And that's how I established my rule for the 75 Hard for my diet. And it's been 10 days, you guys, and it has been so eye-opening to the fact of how often at the beginning, and it's crazy how it's already normal for me to not do this anymore, but at first it was like instinctual for me to go to the pantry, and like I'd be looking for something to like cook dinner, and I would see some bunnies and I'd want a few bites, and that's just like a natural instinct. Maybe you can relate to it, maybe you can't, maybe this is just my own thing, but I noticed that about myself, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, I really tend to want to do that a lot. And so I have this whole like rule. I'm like, if I want a snack, I still eat snacks. But I'm like, if I want it, I have to put it into a dish. I have to put it on a plate. I have to get a whole serving out rather than thinking I'm just going to have a few bites. Because that was my thing, is I'm like, I didn't want to commit to a full serving of it because I wasn't really hungry. I just wanted the taste of that. And I'm like, it's made me have that like process, that thought process of being like, do you actually want that? Are you actually hungry, or are you just like bored and want that like dopamine rush of a bite of food, you know? And so it's completely like changed my life, honestly, because I feel like I have so much more control over my eating habits and my behaviors, and it's built so much confidence in me because day to day I can have a bag of snacks sitting in front of me and I can like just not touch it and not eat it and have the control to not sit and pick. Or I can eat my dinner or my breakfast or my lunch and be satiated and walk away and not feel like I need to snack after. And it's like the most freeing feeling. And I'm like, it unlocked so many like realizations in my life, because I'm like, I thought I had full control over everything. I thought I had good self-control. Girl, like, you didn't. And so I'm like, you know what? It made me have this realization that I'm like, we can think we're ready, we can think we're making the changes, but like there's probably so much yet to come, and there's so much work to be done still, that you have to be patient and like trust. And that's kind of where I tie God back into it. It's like, I thought I was ready for like a relationship because I thought I had myself figured out. I thought I was at my best self. I'm like, oh no, like in 10 days, I feel like I've created a new version of confidence within myself. Like, I do truly feel like I have control, and that is giving me a lot more confidence because I can finally hold myself to what I say I'm gonna do, and I don't give in to temptations, and I'm able to, I guess, put off like instant gratification for what's to come better. And that's the power of making change, is doing things, withholding from the now, because you know it's better off in the future. You know, what you want. What's the quote? It's actually, I posted a photo of it and it's so good. But let me find it, because it spoke volumes to me. Like, it might have been one of the biggest things I read in this book. It says, discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. And I'm like, that is so freaking right. Like, what I want most is to have like a healthy relationship with like eating, or like a good physique, you know. But it's like, you have to put over the now desires of like, oh, I just want a few bites of that, and then it leads to 10 bites, and then it leads to like just unnecessary like calories and food and all of that I really wasn't hungry for and didn't need, but it was like an indulgent moment where it's just fueling my like happiness now, but like that's not aiding me towards my goals. And I guess I've had this realization that it's like, you have to, every successful person who makes changes, it's like they go through that phase of having to offset what they want in that moment for what they want in the future. And that's for change. Like, it's gonna be hard. It's not easy to make changes. It's not fun always. It's gonna feel hard, and it's gonna feel discouraging sometimes, but day by day it's gonna get easier. Like, the first 3 days I was like, dang, I really want to snack, I really want to bite. But then by day 6 and 7, I'm like, it's not even, it's a new habit form, and I don't even think about it now. And I think it wasn't even like a disorder thing. It just was a habit that I created because I was a snacker. I don't know when I created that habit, but I did, and then it just led to that. And I'm like, I finally broke it, and I feel like it's so freeing to break those bad habits. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this, just because I feel so much better, just because I've changed habits in my life. And it's not easy to do, but it's doable. Yeah. So it's about who and not just do. Like I said, I'm gonna kind of run through some like topics that we talked about, but it's about who, not just do. It's about taking that identity and like claiming that you are that. You are sober, you are a runner, you are controlled, and not, oh, I'm quitting drinking, I'm gonna start running. Like, claim it. It's who, not just do. And then claim the energy, claim it, like live in that presence, you know, claim that identity, because it's so powerful. And then level up, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, get comfortable putting yourself through those challenging moments of change, because change is uncomfortable, I guess. Honestly, you probably know that. It's not easy to make change, but you'll get used to it. You adjust and you get comfortable with that uncomfortableness, and that becomes your normal. And then I feel like when you get to that point, it's kind of time to like make another change. But again, I don't want you to think you need to like make a million changes at once.